So, welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. And I am delighted to have a guest with us again this week. My guest is Ulli Hildebrand, who is a strategic talent architect for her business, Pinpoint Solutions. And what I really loved and why I invited Uli on to have a conversation with us today is that I always talk about teamwork being the competitive advantage, and she talks about talent being the competitive advantage. So, we're really on the same page in terms of what we're talking about. So, Uli, welcome to Impactful Teamwork. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Julia. I love being here. I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. So let's just jump right into it. So, why don't we just start with the big question then? Why do you think that talent is the competitive advantage in the workplace?
It's actually a very simple logic reason. Imagine this, nobody shows up for work. What's going to get done? Are your clients going to be
Nothing.
happy? There you go. That's it. It's as simple as that. Specifically in professional service companies, if you work in manufacturing and you have a product, you might be able to still sell what you have in inventory when nobody's there. But when you
Yeah.
have a service, you need to pick up the phone, call the clients, or answer calls, or help your clients solve a particular problem. If nobody shows up, or if people are not in the mood and willing and happy to help, then guess what? Your clients won't be happy. And if your clients aren't happy, your business will suffer. It's that simple.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And that's just such a great way of putting it because I think so many business leaders out there, they're like, "Oh, I'm so frustrated with my people. Oh, they're driving me insane." But actually, business doesn't run without them.
And that's it. And there's another component to it. When I worked in one of my previous jobs, which was a call center, we had an executive meeting, and the executives were talking about this. Oh my God, we have to be here. If we're not here, things will not happen. And I was saying is if we're not here, things will still happen. People will still answer the phones. Clients will still be helped. But if our people are not here, then nothing of that will happen, and that's a problem. So my point is in leadership in their role often takes themselves way too important. It's just way
Yeah.
too much emphasis on, hey, I'm the leader, I'm the big guy. And while that obviously leadership is important, it won't work without the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
After all,
Yeah.
you
I
know
mean,
what, if nobody's following you, Julia, you're just out for a walk. You're not leading
yeah.
anything.
Yeah. And our people are the heartbeat of the business. And yeah, without them, nothing else happens. You've had a very diverse career, Uli, and you've worked in a number of different industries. So
Mhm.
perhaps you could share with us, and you and I were having a conversation before we came on air. What are some of the common challenges that you've seen happening in industries that kind of prompted you to go, actually, I need to set up my own business to help people do this? What are some of those key things that you observed and you've experienced personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a couple of things that made me make my choice. One of the things that is happening, I think, in every company, and obviously I'm generalizing here, but from my experience, is that more often than not, you have people in leadership roles that really don't belong there. And I don't mean that it doesn't mean they're bad people. I think they just stumbled into it and they had
Mm,
no way to prepare. They had no time to think about it. When we talk about leadership development, like what you said in one of your podcasts about companies, we talk about what it does, but not what the purpose is. And for leadership, it's the same thing. We tell people what they need to do, what they need to know, how they need to do it, but we completely neglect what I believe is a key success factor for leadership, and that's motivation and mindset to lead. You really
mm.
want to be in that role where you're responsible for other people, for their success, helping them solve problems, and not think about your own so much. Is that something that you enjoy? And if it's not, that's okay. You could still choose
Yeah.
leadership, but then at least you need to be aware of it. And if it's not your natural tendency, to ask and to try to help people, then at least put a post-it on your computer and that says ask your people how they're doing as a reminder every day. So leadership is one challenge I think that every company has. Now, I also believe another challenge that most companies and most people in companies have is setting healthy boundaries. Obviously,
Mm.
technology is not making this any easier.
No, for
We're
sure.
Yeah, we're reachable, accessible pretty much at any time, right? And we feel that we need to be that. We're excusing that with, well, if I don't do that, I might lose my job. But I believe that making yourself accessible 24/7 is has a different, has a different motivation. I think it's the idea that you actually need it. And I think that's a big mistake for anybody in the company, leadership or not, to think that the company will not work without you. That's just a big mistake. So that would then lead into, it's okay to have a personal life. It's okay to set some boundaries. And I think that helps everybody's well being. It helps the individual's well being and it helps the company's well being. And that's really, one of the things that I'm striving to help companies with is creating that balance, right? Balance between the company's needs and the individual needs, being creating a work environment and a culture in which people thrive and they want to work rather than they feel like I have to be here because I have no options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I absolutely, because I know that I was guilty in the corporate world of being that person. There was very much a culture of you didn't leave before your boss left. And then you're sitting there and you're almost just pushing paper around the desk just to be
You
seen
know,
there. And what
no,
a waste
it's
of time that is.
and it doesn't
Sorry.
have productivity, right? My very first job out of school, and this goes back in Germany where I was born and raised, I was told on my very first day, along with my other colleagues who were hired into the same program, if you think you can work 8 hours a day and be successful here, you're wrong. So what did that do? It made us all stay at least 10 hours, but we weren't any more productive. We had just more
No.
time to disturb other people and go and chat here and there, take a longer break. But we made a point not to leave until we had at least 10 hours. But who benefited from that? I don't think anyone did.
No, and I think this is a real shift, isn't it, that we've seen. And it was perhaps accelerated a bit through the COVID pandemic, where actually we've started to move from its hours in the office to what are your deliverables? What are your outputs? Because if you can
Yeah,
get the work done in 3 days a week, happy days. We should be allowed to do it. But often that's not the case.
yeah. See, I think that the working from home, as much as everybody loves it, because it does give you an opportunity, right? You can do some laundry in between when you need a break. You can little things that might help. But I think a lot of people are probably much more stressed and see at least that they work a lot harder. And the reason is the boundaries aren't clear. So you get up at 7, you pull up the computer. So you already have 30 minutes in, then you need to get the kids ready or walk the dog. That's what I do in the morning. And then you get back to it. Then you do 2 hours. Then there's somebody comes to the house, something needs to be fixed. Then you have another hour. Then you do lunch. So you have these interruptions and you go back to your computer all the time and try to catch up and do stuff. And at the end of the day, it's 9 p.m. at night and you feel like you've been on your computer working the whole time.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you actually tracked your hours, you'll find you probably haven't, if you've worked a total of 6 hours, that's a lot. That's
Mhm.
my, and I'm not being trying to be critical here. I just think that's where reality and perception mixes, and that's where stress comes in, because now it's like you feel like you're overworked, you're overwhelmed, everything. So me, and I'm a little bit old school. I would much rather go to work, be there, spend my time, be productive, and then go home and be done. I really
Yeah.
don't like to be. I don't love this whole you need to be accessible and respond all the time, and that's
Yeah.
that's so important to learn. I think that's why it's important to learn to set boundaries
Yeah.
and really
Yeah. And
put that thing away.
yeah, and I think so. Let me share with you. I had a client that I was talking with recently, and they work from home as well. And what I loved is they get up in the morning, and when they're about to start work, they go outside, they walk around the block near where they live, and now they
Hmm.
come in, and now they're at work, and then they
Okay.
work
Yeah.
throughout
Yep.
the day, and then they leave, and then they're like, go out the house, do the
Do
walk
the
again, and now I'm back. Because there is that delineation, everything blurs together, and I think you're
Yep.
exactly right. That's what causes people and team members to be stressed. Like, oh, I haven't done it. I haven't done it. And we love the flexibility that, like, you can go and walk the dog or pick your kids up from school, and that's all great. But everything blurs together, and just life and work are just one big bubble and you don't have any clarity between which are which, like you said, those boundaries that makes it
Yeah.
challenging
Yeah.
sometimes for people. Yeah.
And you get sucked in by the rest of the organization. If everybody does that, you're expected to do the same, especially if your boss does that. So I learned that when I moved to Chicago and I was new there, I didn't know anybody. I lived in temporary living. And so I had nothing to do but work. So
Yep.
I would write emails late, I would work on the weekends, and I would send that out. And then I would start getting responses from my people. And then I come back to work on Monday and I said, I don't expect you to answer. I'm like, but if you're sending it to me, so what I ended up doing, if I really felt I needed to send emails, I would type them and then I would schedule them to go out on Monday morning.
Yeah.
So I would log, I get to work, I log in at 7 a.m. or whatever, and then 15 emails would go out at the same time. But nobody felt compelled to do anything over the weekend, which I didn't want them to feel they
Mm.
have to work weekends just because I didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
So that was a good learning experience actually. People will mirror what their boss does. So you
Yeah.
can say a million times, I don't want you to, or you don't need to, but they will mirror what they say because they assume,
Yeah.
and often probably rightfully, that's what's expected.
Yeah, yeah. And that goes back to the culture, right? Isn't it? People do. We mirror what our boss does. That's how we learn things. And just to loop back to what you said, one of the first things you said was about leadership and the wrong
Yeah.
people getting promoted into leadership roles. And you and I were talking before, and you also have a horse, so we might get on to what later on about what we've learned about
Great.
leadership and teamwork from horses. But the horse, my old horse, who used to be the leader of the herd, he was absolutely an example of this. He got promoted to be the herd leader because nobody else would do it. And it's this Peter principle. People are promoted to their
Yep.
level of incompetence. But he was a reluctant leader. He only did it because no other horses in the herd were able to
Stepped
do
up.
it. So he
Yeah.
did it. Yeah. And but he
Mm.
wasn't very good. And what's been really interesting is the younger horses in the herd learn leadership from him, right? From watching him.
Mhm.
And now my lead mare is not a very good leader, but her role model was not a very good leader. And so we see this
Mm.
in business all the time. When that
Me
wrong
too.
person gets promoted to leadership, then more junior people think that's the way to lead. And then
And
they
if
take that
they
forward.
Yeah, and equally, an equal negative side effect is if the wrong person gets selected for the role and they don't know what they're doing, they don't really want to do it, they're not happy, it reflects on the team. They're not going
Yeah.
to be happy, and then who else is going to be leaving? Now you create a turnover issue, and it's that's why it's just so important, I think, to have the right motivation and mindset. Just even know about what leadership is and what does it mean to me. If I am someone who loves to work as an individual contributor, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I have my structure set. I don't want anybody to get in my business. I just want to do my job and be done. Then that may not be the best, prerequisite for leadership. Now, doesn't
Yeah.
mean you can't be a leader. It just means if you know it, and that's my other point, self-awareness, right? If you know that's how you're wired, then you just have to work a little harder on it. And you have to give yourself some helpful little tools, whether it's post-its or
Yeah.
whatever, reminders in your phone or something that will remind you that your job is about other people now, not about how you like to work.
Yeah. That's such a great insight and a reminder for all of us. So, a lot of our listeners on the podcast are like scaling companies. So, I'm curious, what sort of teamwork and people issues, talent issues have you seen, particularly that come with companies that are scaling?
I think one of the biggest challenges is fear of the unknown. I
Oh,
think people recognize at some level that change is coming. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but my take is people are typically resistant to any kind of change that they didn't
yeah.
initiate.
Yeah.
So take it out of your personal life, right? If you choose to relocate, that's a huge change. but you're fine with it. All the uncomfortable, the unknown, you go out, you learn how to do it, you get the information. Where the biggest change that anybody can make is they choose to have a child. Now, that's the thing that you have no idea what's coming to you, but you want it. And so you figure out how to do it. Obviously, that baby arrives and all of a sudden your world is completely different and you're ready to deal with it. And most people manage that in their personal lives just fine. Now, at work, there's this idea of I'm your employee, I'm here now. So now you're responsible to make me happy and to make me successful. And so that's the first mistake, right? That many employees are expecting the company to make their career for them. You develop me. I don't know if
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people. I
Mm.
would ask, why do you want to be a plant manager? Because my dad was one and now it's my turn. Or you ask, what do you want to do? I'll do anything the company needs me to do. That's great. I said, but what is it that you want to do? I do what the company needs me to do. And then I said, well, the company needs someone to clean the bathrooms. Is that what you want to do? No, that's not what I want to do. I'm like, there you go. So please, you need to help, right? You need to help. You need to give us an idea where you want to go. And back to your question, I think the fear and when companies grow, especially now with the advent of AI and all this technology
Yeah.
that's coming, it's am I still going to be here? And then there's, like I said, I believe there's a natural resistance to change that you haven't initiated yourself. So there are always early adopters. There are always people that will get on the bandwagon really quickly, and that's great. Those need to be used. And
Hmm.
this is where I think most companies have a challenge when they grow.
Hmm.
They because they don't have a proper talent structure, infrastructure in place. They may not even have a proper financial infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
They so they're just keep growing by having more clients or having more revenue, but the systems, the process, the structure doesn't grow with or hasn't been planned for. If you're a
Yeah.
20 people company, you can manage a lot of things from the hip, right? Shooting from the hip. You can say,
Yeah.
okay, here's a client that needs this or the other. But then when your business starts growing, it's not about hiring more people. It's not about spending more money. It's about being smarter and more efficient. At
Yeah.
some point, however much you want to keep your family culture, maybe at some point you have to grow beyond the point and start putting some process, some structure,
Mm.
something in place that will allow you as the owner, CEO, to rely that your people will actually be able to run the business when you're away. Yeah, because
Yeah.
really, I think for any CEO who's growing the company past a certain point, there's only so much I don't care how broad your shoulders are, there's only so much you can carry. And if you're interested in your own health, then you better figure out how to build a team underneath you that can help you carry this burden, I would say, or
Mhm.
that can help you be successful. If you don't do that, yeah, there's a ceiling that you hit. You're not going to grow further beyond a certain point, and you're going to be stressed out forever.
Yeah, and this is what you've exactly described is when the CEO becomes a bottleneck in the company. Nothing else can happen. The scaling can't happen because everything's going through you. So how do you then empower your team members, like you were talking about there, to step up, take responsibility, drive the business forward for you? So you
Yep.
alluded there to culture, and you've got a great article on your website about perspectives on culture. So let's just talk a little bit about culture and how do you create that high performance culture within an organization? Because I know you've got some quite unique views on this, the way we
I
talk
do. You
about
know what? I do have uh, maybe it's because I come from a different country, and then here in this culture where I'm at now in the United States, everything's a little different. But so to me, culture is it's like the air that you breathe. If it's not right, you're gonna start coughing and you're gonna have hiccups and it's just not gonna you're not gonna
it.
run as fast. You're not gonna jump as high. That's what I associate culture with. And it's all about behavior. And I would say leadership behavior. So the
Yeah.
first thing businesses are usually pretty clear, not every that I've been in, but yeah, let's assume business is very clear of what it
Yeah.
is that they want to achieve from a business perspective. They want growth, they have numbers, revenue, hopefully not just top line, but also bottom line. So they have a good idea, market share, what it is that they want to achieve. but they really don't focus enough on how they want to achieve it. And this how is about culture. It's the behaviors. What behaviors do you need? How do you need your leaders to act to actually get to the goal? So, for example, if you're in if you're in a space where innovation matters and you have decided to grow organically via innovation, ideas, creativity are really important for you because it's always about identifying or finding the next new thing, then your culture needs to be complementing that. In other words, you need leaders who, while they personally may not have to be all that creative and innovative, but they need to be able to have a team that is in creative, innovative. Trial and error matters. So your culture
Yeah.
needs to be one that actually can live with mistakes.
Yeah.
Trial and error means making mistakes. If your company cannot tolerate mistakes, and when somebody screws up, how obviously I'm not talking about a $10 million mistake, but when
Yeah.
people try something new and it's not working and they get their head chopped off or they get fired, you're going to kill all of that creativity. You're going to kill any type of innovation. Now, if that's where you're going, if that's how you act, then you better not have a strategic goal to grow organically based on innovation. It just won't
Yeah.
work. There's got to be some alignment. Now,
Yeah.
and that's really business driven. Now, to me, there's another component that, of course, everybody needs to decide for themselves. But I like to really, you know how people called, like when an executive team talks about their budget, they look at the bottom line, and one of the biggest cost factors, especially in service companies, is personnel cost.
Yeah.
Cost, by definition, needs to be reduced. So that is already totally counterintuitive to what people really are. If they are an asset, you need to invest, not reduce.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying more people, I'm saying the right people and helping people get to the right spot. So there's a contradiction already. And one of the biggest challenges, you asked about that earlier, and that is a cultural issue too. If your company looks at finances on a monthly or quarterly budget and doesn't see the big picture, then it will make mistakes. It will not recognize. So I've worked in a company that in March was their time to pay bonus for what happened the
Yep.
previous year, pretty typical. And they decided there's even though and that previous year was a great financial year. They made a lot of money. They achieved their goals. It
Yeah.
was a good year. But when come March, when they needed to make that decision, they looked at their numbers and they said February and March weren't good months. So they decided not to pay bonus. So now what does that do to people? Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a cultural issue, right? If you don't stick to your commitments, you tell them bonus is coming, you tell them it's tied to previous year's results, and then you're not doing it because the in the moment perspective feels like it's not warranted. That's a problem. That's a problem. You erase trust. Why would when people perform? So why would they try to make it happen? Yeah, so I believe what you do speaks much louder than what you say. I believe that trust needs to be earned. I do other outside, even if you don't care about people, just at least from a business perspective, see that it makes sense to do the right thing by the people. But ideally, obviously, people themselves will also matter. I believe an important piece of culture is to not just consider people as an asset, but to also understand, value them, and recognize them not just for what they do, but also for who they are. And
Yeah.
there's a difference, right? If can I be myself at work? If I've always had a loud mouth, and you know what, I got chopped off a few times in my career, and it wasn't pretty. But the thing is, you dust yourself off, and then you keep going. I think I cut myself off a couple of nice career moves just because I have such a loud mouth and because I say what I think. And but again, the tone makes the music, right? It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. And when I was younger,
Yeah.
I really didn't realize that. I thought I need to fight
Yeah.
every battle, and that wasn't always the smartest thing to do. Did I answer
Yeah.
your question? Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you talk about in that paper as well, but you've alluded to, but I just want to spell it out directly for people, is this ripple effect of how we talk about a lot of this on the podcast about everyone makes an impact and creates a ripple around them. And as a leader, your leadership, we sometimes call it leadership wake, leadership ripple, is massive, right? Around everybody. But it's also understanding that, like you say, the culture impacts everything. And we need to be aware of changing one thing here, the impact it has over here. I was just coaching a client before this call, and there's been a lot of changes in her company. And her boss couldn't see how that impacted her because although it didn't directly impact her, it meant that all the stakeholders she were dealing with were all changing. So it meant a
Yeah.
huge amount of new work for her. But that was nothing to do with you and your team and your role. And she's, yeah, but
Right.
they're all the people I interact with. And I think this ripple impact that we need to be aware of within the organization is so important. But I love what you talked about this culture is so important about, I call it rewarding the try, the experimentation. Companies today are all saying we want more innovation, we want more creativity, but yet, and there's quite a lot of research about this, that typically a lot of cultures don't do that. So they wonder why they don't have innovation and creativity because he slapped it down and the people that then can do it leave.
And that clearly is a challenge. Another thing is you want people to perform, you've got to give them some time to step away. Yeah, if they're on 24/7 or they feel they're on 24/7, it's not going to work. You're going to have burnout people, people that get tired. And then if they don't get recognized for that, and it's hard to recognize, like if everybody works crazy hours, why would you recognize one of them? So I want to give you an example of changing culture through
Please.
behavior the way I did it. And not to toot my own horn here, but it was just such a, I think, somewhat hilarious situation. I was born and raised in Germany, and Germany has a very different approach to vacation than here in the
Yeah.
US. In Germany, you've got 30 days, and people will go 2 or 3 weeks, and it's no problem because they come up with a system where someone else reads your email. So you don't come back to 5,000 emails. So, anyway, so I come here, I started my job here at one of the companies in January, and in July that same year I said I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks, and people are like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "I don't know what you mean. Like, why can't I do that? You haven't worked here long enough." And I'm like, "I don't understand what that has to do with anything." I said, "Let me put it this way. Until 6 months ago, this company worked without me for 75 years. You think they can do without me for 2 weeks?" And people are like, "You're crazy." So then this guy says, "Should we call you when the plant burns down?" I'm like, "If the plant's burning down," I said, "don't call me, call the fire department. There's nothing I can do. I will be 4,000 miles away. There's nothing I can do. Call the fire department. And if you think I need to know, make sure you remember I'm 6 hours ahead of you. Don't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's nothing
Yeah.
I can do." And so people looked at me. This is my first year there. They were like, they thought I was crazy. And when I left that company 6 years later, I had people from all kind of functions coming to me and says, We thought you were crazy." But what I started with that was, at least for my group, I implemented them whenever anybody else went on vacation. The rule was we're not calling them. If you're on vacation, you're on vacation. There's no
Yeah.
need to. I don't know about you, but in my entire 20 years or so in HR, I've only ever had one situation where it was really good that I had my phone on a holiday. But usually, whatever crisis is, no, if nobody got hurt, if nobody died, it can wait one more day. And whenever I left to go on vacation, I would tell my team, pretend I'm in a coma. You can't talk to me. Make a decision. Any decision is better than no decision. And then when they didn't call me, I would come back and I would just praise them to the skies and say, "I am so proud of you that you did not call me." And then it became an ambition. And so we
Yeah.
made this the key for every employee and for everybody on my team. When they went on vacation, they were on vacation. We figured out somebody else would check emails, pick up their phone as
Yeah.
necessary. And we say, and if people chose to be in their email, I would say that's up to you. That is your
Yeah.
decision to make. It's not the expectation. But I'm telling you, my payroll supervisor, 17 years with the company, she came back from a week of vacation. She comes, walks right into my in my office on Monday morning and accuses me, you didn't call me. And I'm like, you were on vacation. Why would I call you? She said, I've never once been on vacation in all these years, and my boss didn't call me every day. And I said, I am so sorry. I just hope you didn't sit next to the phone waiting for my call. I let you, and what was this was actually a good learning realization for me. It wasn't so much about her not being called as it was for her the realization that we could run payroll without her. She didn't think that. Now she realized we could do without her. And that is what I said earlier. It's not about doing what others expecting. When people do that a little bit for themselves, I think it's about they need me and they can't do without me. And that makes them feel important and good. And I'm saying, don't ever overestimate your value in that sense, because really, if you win the lottery and walk away, the company will not stop working.
Yeah.
Everything will keep moving.
Yeah. And you remind me of, what was it you were talking there about holiday and stuff? Oh, yeah. And I think one of the biggest problems is this little machine, the bloody phone. Because you
Absolutely.
were talking, I was like, oh my God. I remember when I was really, it was like my first management role. And my boss had gone on holiday. And this was the days when mobile phones were just coming in. And I
Okay.
couldn't contact her. She was on a ski slope. There was no way I could maybe send her a fax that might have got to the hotel.
Yeah.
And I had to make a decision. And I think that's one of the challenges with the technology. It's encouraging people to abdicate responsibility for stepping up and making decisions because they can get hold of their boss and go, oh, what would we do? And actually, what we
Right.
want, you said, empower them, make a decision. It's rare they're going to make a decision that's going to take down the company. And if
Right.
it's that kind of decision, then maybe they should be reaching out. But most of it's just like trivial stuff. And mine was to do with printing a publication and what we should do with it. And I'm just like, oh,
Right.
I've got to do
And
it.
if that's live or die decision for the company, then there's anyway other people that you need to talk to. It's not your boss
Yeah.
directly. I'm with you. I think that my dad, and some of your viewers may not even remember or know what a telex or a fax is, but I remember
Shows our
my
age.
when we were on vacation when I was a kid, my dad had 2 days during 2 weeks where they prearranged a time that he would get on the phone and call in. And that was
Yeah.
that. And that was like the only time that he would actually be in touch or could be in touch for that matter. But yeah, I think the phones are not helping. But
Yeah.
I really think the biggest challenge is to make sure you know for yourself what you can and want to do. And let me just clarify something. When I taught my team and try to set up a culture in my team where people can actually step away, including myself, that was good for the team, no doubt, but it was also very selfish because I wanted to be on vacation and not be
Yeah.
bothered. It wasn't just, oh, I want my people to be empowered. Of course, I want my people to be make decisions and feel good about
Yeah.
they can run the show. And of course, and I want their clients to be comfortable with dealing with my people. That's all super, super important. But it really had a good selfish component to it. I'll be frank.
Yeah.
It was about me. I feel I don't want to be the one person that everybody thinks they need to call for everything. I so it wasn't
Yeah. And I
quite
think
as
that's, yeah.
quite as
I think that's just,
selfless as it maybe
yeah.
sounded. So I wanted to correct
Well,
that.
yeah, I think the leader's job and really what all of us should be striving to do, which is so counterintuitive, is actually make our own role redundant, right? Because everyone
That is
else can do
true.
everything, and then you get to that point, right? But I know in the corporate world, I was like, oh God, I remember hiring people, and I was like, I didn't want to hire them. They're too smart. They're smarter than me. It's that same sort of thing, right? Whereas actually, I should have
So
been building that team.
yeah. So that leads me to another thought that I would love to share, if I may. One of my beliefs, and one of my somewhat unconventional beliefs, is this: the less of an expert you are, the better leader you can be. And so let me say this again: the less of an expert you are, the better leader you can be. And why am I saying this? If you are not the expert and you get put into a leadership role, leading a team that you really don't know much about what they do, you have to rely on them. You have to clue
Yeah.
them in. You have to make them part of where we're going, what we're doing, what you talk about, teamship. And then you
Yeah.
have to trust them. And if somebody is not working out properly, if there's an issue, you have to address it quickly because you can't cover. So nobody will suffer for a long time. And that may not work for a finance position where you really need to have a CPA background or something, but for many positions, I actually believe the less of an expert you are, the better leader you can be. That is, if you're willing to work with your team, to learn, to listen, if you're willing to not step back as a leader and really understand yourself as the vehicle to move the team overall to success. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's amazing. So, Uli, I'm really conscious of how long we've been talking. It's been so
I
interesting.
know.
Um,
It's been fun.
so let me ask you a final question because you shared with me before we came on air, obviously you've got a horse. I learnt my best leadership, teamwork, and communication lessons from my horses. And obviously that's what I share with leaders in my experiential workshops that we do with horses. So I'm just curious, is there a great lesson, business lesson, leadership lesson you ever have learned from your horse?
Yeah, you know what? What I've learned from my horse is to focus. My horse is when I pull him in and I put him in the grooming stall, and especially when I came from work and I was all worked up and my brain was still all going all over the place, he would wiggle in the cross ties and he will go back and forth and sideways and he would make me move so that he can put his head on my shoulders and make me calm down.
Yeah.
So he was my sanity that way because it was like my
Yeah.
2 or 3 hours that I was gone from the face of the earth. And he would make me slow down my thinking, settle down, and just focus because he taught me if I'm not focused, he's not functioning properly. And I thought that was a very good lesson for me to this day. When he starts wiggling in cross ties, I start thinking, okay, where's my head? Am I where I need to be? So that's the lesson, one of the lessons that I learned from my horse. And he's been just such
Yeah.
a wonderful horse.
Yeah. So, the power of the pause, really, isn't it? When we're all frenetic and our energy is all over the place, helping us reground, recenter, and just get
And
focused on what we're
it's
doing.
with people the same. If you're
Yeah.
sitting in your office and you're like all over the place in your head, and
Yeah.
somebody comes in and has a problem, like if you can't focus and be there in the moment, at least for that moment, that
Yeah.
person will leave and says, "My boss doesn't care."
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I love working with the horses because it's just the lessons are just so profound and they so map back to the business world. If we talk to people and we say about your energy is making your team all confused, they can't see it, but they see it immediately with the horses or experience it with the horses.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
okay. Thank you so much for your time today. We so appreciate you sharing all your wisdom here on Impactful Teamwork. In the show notes, we'll put all of your bio and everything so that people can connect with you. Uli has some great tools on her website. We didn't actually get into the whole topic of employee engagement and stuff like that, but she's got some amazing tools on her website to help you figure out levels of engagement or, in fact, what the disengagement is costing you more specifically. So I'd encourage you to go and check those out. But thank you so much for your time today.
Oh my God, thank you. I so appreciate. I had fun, and like I told you earlier, I can talk about this all day, and I just
Me
hope it
too.
has some value for your listeners. That would be the best outcome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So, everyone, until next week, thank you so much for your time today. And we shall see you next week on Impactful Teamwork. Bye bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Stop.